Sounds good. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the City Council to order at 7:01 p.m. Ask the clerk to read the statement of compliance with public meetings act.
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with the meeting notice provided to the Trenton Times, the Hunterdon County Democrat, and members on the listserv. The meeting agenda provides for action items known at the time of publication and is subject to change. This meeting is being streamed live and recorded using the Zoom meeting platform. Roll call.
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Kaminsky. Here. Council President Lambert. Here. Councilman Lai.
Here.
Councilman Stegman.
Here.
Mayor Noah.
Here. Clerk, everyone please rise to the pledge of allegiance to the standing for a moment of silence in support of breast cancer awareness. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the honor, to the thanks, of the nation, of the world, we must help, liberty to you now. Thank you. Please be seated. Before I open this up to public comment, I'm going to just share a couple of things that were on the agenda for later on in the meeting, and I'm also going to read a statement. I just wanted to advise everybody that on August 27th, I got a notification from the city attorney who let me know that K. Armenian's attorney advised the city that that they were going to file a challenge, or that they had filed a challenge with the court. So the attorney confirmed their intent to pursue this challenge to conclusion if the city follows through the court order in connection with the third round housing element and fair share plan. Specifically, once the redevelopment plan has been amended, currently scheduled for second reading the 18th. Once it's adopted and the statutory period for objections or challenge to the ordinance to pass, they will withdraw their objection. So that's posted to the city website. On the resident tab, we have the site that's called the high school redevelopment area. So that filing has been posted there. So if you have any questions about these, let me know. And then just an update from the city attorney also in regards to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection site access to properties in Common Hill. So this, I'm just going to read what the attorney wrote. The city received 2 preliminary assessment reports from NJDEP late last week, one for the Lambertville landfill and one for the former Taurus Corporation property. These documents actually a compilation of historical documents related to these 2 properties, which are attached to the reports. The reports summarize some information contained in the historical documents, including but not limited to site location, ownership history, operator history, site operations, and area water supply. The reports do not provide any significant environmental analysis. The documents are being reviewed by city attorneys to the city's environmental consultant for their review and for further assessment related to the properties in question. These documents will be posted to the city website. New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection also advised that their assigned deputy attorney general is negotiating a site access agreement with the property owner for the NJDEP to collect and analyze samples of the properties. The samples will be analyzed in New Jersey and EPA approved labs and will be shared with the city. So when I have more information on that, certainly share it. And this was a statement I was thinking I was going to give in that meeting, but I think in lieu of just some concerns here, I'm going to read a statement now. So before I open the floor for public comment, I would like to read into the record the statement which is addressed to both the public and the council members. Regarding the Academy Hill redevelopment project, much has been said on social media by members of the public during council meetings and by the council from this dais about my actions as mayor. Some of these statements have been misleading or factually incorrect, and I would like to set the record straight on several important issues. This has been a long and complicated process, and I would like to walk through the timeline, particularly those less familiar with the details. When I began my tenure as mayor in January 2022, The Landfill High School redevelopment area was already in place and factored significantly into our affordable housing obligations with fair share. Over my first 2.5 years as mayor, I worked with the city council, our city professionals. They helped me to develop amendments to the redevelopment plan that were introduced on May 16th, 2024. While much of the detailed work occurred during closed sessions, there were several official notices letting the public know the governing body was in discussions on the topic. During this time, the whole council was actively included in every important decision and agreed unanimously with every significant decision, including the introduction of the ordinance on first reading. After the ordinance was introduced, there was significant opposition from the public, which intensified as some private wells on Common Hill began to test positive for PFAS in the summer. The planning board met on June 19th, 2024, and found the redevelopment plan inconsistent with the master plan, citing a host of concerns. As mayor, I have only one vote. While I continue to believe that the issues raised by the public and the planning board, including stormwater management, environmental remediations, and pedestrian and traffic safety, can be responsibly addressed as the project moved forward, it was clear that the project had lost council support, so the ordinance was tabled on the following evening, June 20, 2024. Throughout the summer and into the fall of 2024, I worked with the council and our city professionals to renegotiate with Hovnanian, who agreed to lower the proposed number of units from 200 to 180, while keeping the number of affordable units at 40. In my request, they also provided the city with the Phase 1 environmental study. While these negotiations were underway, the council also heard concerns from the court adjudicator with respect to the city settlement agreement, fair share, and its obligation to provide affordable housing on the site. At the closed session meeting on November 21st, 2024, the council expressed views that the conditional redeveloper status should be allowed to expire. Based on that discussion, I directed Bill Opal, the city attorney, to draft a letter to Kay Hovnanian that was subsequently reviewed and approved by the council members. In a closed session meeting on December 5th, the council members expressed support for the letter, at which time I read a statement outlining my own views. Unfortunately, the statement I read during the meeting on December 5th was not included in the closed session minutes. It was my error in not providing a statement to the city clerk, Cindy Iggy, and I have not been able to find a copy of the brief statement in my records. No one caught the mistake at the time, and the minutes were approved at the next council meeting on December 19th, 2024. In my statement, I noted my opposition to sending the letter, which allowed Kay Hovnanian's conditional redeveloper status to expire. Based on conversations with city professionals and a court adjudicator over the preceding months, I was deeply concerned this action would be considered a breach of good faith and would result in legal action against the city. Putting my personal views aside and respecting the majority view, the letter was sent the following day. In February 2025, not unexpectedly, KHOW filed suit to restore their status as conditional redeveloper with rights to build the original 200 units in the ordinance. In response, I directed our city professionals to submit a legal brief on behalf of the city in opposition to Kay Hovnanian's requested relief. All council members were asked to provide input to make the brief as strong as possible. Here, I would like to explicitly respond to assertions from the public that key facts about site environmental concerns were not included in the city's brief. This is not true. The court and the court adjudicator were made well aware of ongoing PFAS issues on Common Hill since they were first discovered in June 2024. While these environmental concerns were stated in the brief, there was limited evidence the city could include. The city had no access to environmental testing on Academy Hill, given its private property, and submitted the strongest brief possible with the available data. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection is still in the midst of conducting a source investigation. In June of this year, the court decided in Kay Hovnanian's favor, exposing the city's potential builders' remedy lawsuits. To mitigate the risk, the council agreed to move forward with the original amendments in the redevelopment plan. Council introduced the ordinance on first reading at the August 21st meeting, and the planning board reviewed it for consistency with the master plan on September 3rd, voting again to find it inconsistent with the master plan. The ordinance will have its public hearing and second reading on September 18th. So, talk about saying it to me, I said there are that. So with that, I will open the meeting up to public comments. I think everybody here should know the parameters. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes to make your comments or questions. Nancy will let you know when you have 30 seconds left. And I ask that you confine your remarks to the general governing body, and then one person should be singled out.
Sean Ellis, 21 Belvedere Avenue. So I call bullshit. There were so many opportunities that we had to avert this crisis. And the public was asking for them. Many people, even many council members were asking for them. They were never enacted on. The idea that that the mayor has only one vote is preposterous because the mayor sets the agenda. And I want to bring up the notion of the business administrator that was floated. I am in full support of a business administrator only and only if we get rid of the mayor and go with a council and business administrator set up under the Faulkner Act, like Red Bank has recently done, because we don't need more professionals carrying out the mayor's whims, and we need one vote to actually mean one vote. We've suffered through the actions of this mayor, the previous mayor, who both of whom have completely eroded trust, public trust, council's trust, pretty much almost everybody's trust, I think. So please don't think that we're going to believe this scrubbed timeline, because like I said, it's total bullshit. Number two, I wanted to ask about the planning board, because the planning board meeting is next week. And correct?
No,
It was last night. Oh my gosh, okay, so I missed it.
6th grade. You said it in the thing.
Rejected it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean?
When you're done with your statement, I'll answer.
Okay. We just got two new well reports today from Kind Health. One of the owners is in hospice with pancreatic cancer. That's the third person in my block that has pancreatic cancer or died of pancreatic cancer in the past few years. Another person was diagnosed just earlier this year. And still the city's done nothing, really not lifted a finger for any of the residents to help them. Another point I wanted to make is that I know that the statement was lost from the minutes, but if anyone who was there can help illuminate the public on any of the salient points that were made, we would be grateful, I think. So, thank you.
The planning board did look at the amendments to the redevelopment plan last night, found them inconsistent with the master plan by a vote of 6-3. They used the exact same, they recommended the exact same points be resubmitted to the city with one addition, and that was to include a walking trail through the property. And I'm sorry, the planning board is an advisory board in this matter. They have no, the council can either accept their recommendations or incorporate some of them potentially into the redevelopment agreement. There's a whole host of things that we'll be looking at when the letter comes through, and we begin to have conversations about the redevelopment agreement.
Sean, I have some questions for you about the gentleman who unfortunately, he passed. Thank you. Do you know, was he able to get the filter to yet, or was he?
So his test result just came back, so the next step is to then send that to the spill fund to.
Do you know why it took him so long to get to the, I mean, obviously, because I know there have been a lot of people, you've been great about helping people, but I know there's a barrier, obviously, the cost. Do you think it's the cost that prevented?
I think that, oh, no, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't know exactly with this person. I was just informed by another neighbor and asked to interpret the test results. And I actually I know that it took a long time to get the test back because it's the DEP test, and the DEP tests are deprioritized, or they're prioritized higher for certain types of.
Yeah, they batch them, just to, everyone, so I've been working just. We have to digress a little with Karen Atwood and Karen and Sean, right? Karen is really become our
Karen,
general now,
yeah.
give us some other things. So she gave me, I got three different assignments from her yesterday, but we're going around. Most folks are on systems, actually, the issue now has been that because the spill fund covers it, and so the barrier. That cost barrier now, like, cost barrier was like, 90 days ago, and now everyone's found this bill act. It's open, but now the problem is there's 8 or 9 systems that have a sulfur smell, rotten egg smell, and there's a debate between the system folks, the DEP, about what that cause is, and what DEP will pay for. West Amwell, Zach Rich, talked to the county health department, who is now getting involved in interviewing everybody. And so what we kind of decided to do in the past day or two is kind of get all this information together, understand, because some of it's like hearsay, figure out how to resolve this, because there's obviously something with some of these systems that aren't working for people, but then there are some people that the system's working for. So most folks are tested, in Lambertville, from the Atwood Sean Karen Kaminsky analysis. It's really now moving up into West Amwell. So, but the systems themselves, everyone's been moving along, although I have 3 families that Karen and I are working on, I can't mention that we may need to assist, we double check on. Somebody needs a translator, but we've been trying to fill that gap, so that has been, promising. Now, what the department has said too, through their testing, is that, I don't know, the lab, we got that slew back because the testing is coming in. But they are also, just so people understand, conducting a source analysis at the same time that they're doing all the testing. So they're not waiting. And the source analysis is the access stuff that they had sent to us about the tourist property, the landfill. But that is going, they're coming up with a testing plan and negotiating the site. So they're both kind of moving simultaneously, and they'll also, kind of then, you compare testing data of the folks and what the PFAS, what the chemicals that are there, and then they'll look at what they find there. And so, this whole source analysis is pretty, takes a while, but at least it's kind of happening at the same time. So I don't, if that's where I left it, like, as of like today, it's 11 a.m.
Yeah, I appreciate your help with that and everything. And I guess my main concern is that I know the source analysis can take a long time, but is there a chance that development could start before that source analysis is complete? Because I worry about blasting, making it worse. That's my big concern.
Well, we would think, it's kind of incumbent upon everybody to work together, and the source analysis, no one's gonna give us all a timeline, they gotta get on the property to do the stuff, but it's certainly incumbent upon everyone involved to circle the wagons with the DP and everybody, to make sure that everyone is aware of what's happening. We're going to be crossing over the Rubicon with DEP, maybe under new leadership, because we're going to be getting a new administration, getting a new governor. So we're going to also have to, sometimes you have to do some of this by hand, which is calling people and making the connections, because, the old saying about the squeaky wheel, blah, 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 still holds true in 2025. So ready to do that, but I actually have an assignment for Karen. I have to talk to you about one family afterwards that don't
Right, so-
And you're concerned about blasting, that is something that we
Yeah.
talked about with the city attorney to build into any agreement to
Right.
try to protect ourselves from those concerns, because other residents have obviously raised them as well. So
Yeah, well, because
continue
it could make it worse for current residents, but also there's the two
Yeah.
flanking properties don't have any contamination, but blasting could introduce contamination there as well, with fissures or, rock hammering and stuff that happens, so, thank you.
Thanks. Judy Gleason, 86 North Union Street. I've got three things I wanna talk about a little bit. First, the statement that the mayor spoke about that he can't find. I am the person who requested that under Oprah, having seen the closed minutes from the December 5th meeting where it said that the mayor made a statement. I don't know how people handle their computer stuff. But with all the documents that are created and read and talked about through the mayor's office, I would say that's a good place to start looking for the one that nobody can find, but. If no one can find it, I need an official. From the records custodian, I believe, that says. We don't have it, or we're not gonna give it to you, or however they interpret it, so that I can do whatever I wanna do next, so that's just a housekeeping kind of thing. The number of things I've lost in my computer and then later found, I don't wanna really share, but I think we know what that can be like. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the timeline. Having been an active practicing attorney for a number of years, I know how the statement of facts can really make a difference in a case. And so one of the things you do is do the statement of facts. It's not that you don't give real facts. It's just that you give the facts that are helpful to you and you don't necessarily talk about all the other facts. I noticed, for example, the number of times, and I know it because I did it, and I'm not the only one, spoke out at city council meeting after city council meeting after city council meeting and said, can you please assign to the, to the planning person, whatever we call it, to look at other places, to do the things we need to do so that it looks as though we're doing something besides Symphonian. So all of the other things that were going on should be in the timeline, because the timeline was not just the clean, beautiful timeline that you read. There's a lot of things that went on, some good, some bad, some successful, some unsuccessful. But that should be, if that's gonna be a timeline, that should be a real timeline, not the kind of timeline it is right now. And thirdly, we talked about, Sean mentioned it, I have mentioned it in the past, and I want to say, I have been wrong in the past when I have stood up here and said, I looked up the code of the city and I know that this is what's supposed to happen, because I didn't look at the whole thing. So I was unfair, I think, in many cases to members of council, because I hadn't read the part that's at the very beginning of the section that talks about the fact that the basically, and Sean made this point, the control of the agenda, that is all coming through the mayor or the mayor's or the clerk who has the answer to the mayor or a mayor designee. So I unfairly acted as though you are all equally culpable for not doing things. I read that, I was wrong. You're not, because there are aspects you cannot do. I don't know what you talk about in your private meeting. I know we've had mayor and council here for a number of years, many, many years when I've lived here. And we have not had the kind of problem we're having now. I think because of communication, which you've heard me say before, we need communication and trying to work it out. But more will happen with that over the next period of time, because I think the public needs to know a better presentation than I just did about the fact that we should be careful who we're beating up on until we know what they are legally permitted to do and what they're not legally permitted to do. So to the extent that you will accept it, my apology for having misrepresented that in previous things, I offer that apology and say, I now have read the whole thing. You know, it's hard to force yourself to read absolutely everything, but I always did it as a professional, and now I guess I have to do it as a regular. So hate that, but thank you.
Jeff Tittle, 33 Wilson Street. I just want to start off by saying that in your timeline, you also left out the judge's opinion that said that there were things that were not in evidence that he could not make a decision on because they were not in evidence, because you did not put in a report about the PFAS. You did not put in an engineering study. You did not put in a traffic study or a report about the potential for traffic and pedestrian safety. You did not add a report about the landfill and potentially what's there, or the fact that the DEP called it the tourist investigation, when the site that's most likely in DEP's mind, the place where the PFAS came from, was a factory that used PFAS. So those things were omitted, and they may not, and so you cannot go away and say that everybody's culpable and all responsible, because you're the one who controlled the professionals. You're the one who dealt with the court, you're the one who dealt with the court master, you're the one who dealt with everyone. And those things were glaringly met and left out, just like any kind of potential site. I got up here and said a year ago, in August, about looking at alternative sites because of the contamination. Nothing was really done, and nothing was entered to the court about potential sites. So I just want to start that off before I go on to say, I guess the dog ate my homework. It's with the Epstein file. That was one of the most important documents for the public, and yet somehow it doesn't exist. When you have a court case and you have private meetings, they're supposed to become public after the case. The case is over, and now a key document that the public needs to see. You're not keeping it from Hovnanian. They've already won. You're keeping it from the public to know what you said and did in closed session. And I'm saying you particularly, Mayor, and you can have me removed, but under the Constitution, I will sue you under the First Amendment. So don't think that I'm just gonna sit here and say what's legal and on my mind, because this is not a kangaroo court. This is a public meeting, and I have a right to redress the government for grievances, and I also have a right to speak my mind. The second part I'm going to mention is last night's planning board meeting. It was shameful. No reports, no presentation, nothing for them to look at. They discussed it and they came up with the right decision. Member Kaminsky also said that she had opposed it, but now has to support it. She has to support it because we lost the case that we could have actually done a lot better with, and maybe even more. And the point that I'm trying to get at is that this is going to have a dramatic impact and change to this community. The leveling of amount of development that's going to be visible for miles, stormwater runoff that can't be addressed properly, traffic that can't be addressed properly, pedestrian safety, onward and on. The biggest issue is the toxic chemicals up there and what's going to happen. And this is a disaster waiting to happen, and it was a man-made disaster that could have been avoided.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? How many people do we have? What's that?
Quiet.
How many? Eight. Okay, thank you. We have a motion to close the public comment, please.
So moved.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Moving on to, Member New Hope, and Ambulance West Scott was gonna make a presentation, but they had to cancel. This is scheduling, conflict. So, we'll look forward to, hearing from them sometime soon. We have two resolutions tonight. We have resolution 149-2025. It's a resolution to amend 2025, amending resolutions number 31-2025 to increase the contract amount of Clark Hayden and Hinds to include funding for the Holtzman Farm application to the State Historic Office of Historic Preservation in the amount of $3,000 with the not to exceed amount for the 2025 calendar year, the amount of $128,000. With this amendment funded through an escrow agreement with Fisherman's Mark. So, we talked about this recently. We need to file paperwork with the State Historic Preservation Office, project authorization in regards to the subdivision and potential sale to Fisherman's Mark. So this will allow us to, I believe we awarded the contract to.
Yes, I just messed up the not to exceed amount. I think I had it at 113 and it should be 128,000.
Right, I think that's what it says in that agenda. Oh, is that why we're doing this? It was coming last week. Okay. And just so you know, that 128, it is for the public benefit. It encompasses everything, all their escrow, all of their planning services, everything that they could be potentially billing the city or individual applicants that appear before the planning or zoning board. Is there any questions on those? Can we have a motion to approve resolution 4.49-2025?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you, carries. The next one is resolution number 150-2025. It's a resolution to appoint Councilman Steve Stegman to serve as a liaison for the city of Lambertville with the Film Ready program. And I got the ball on this one last month. We should have had, I should have asked to do this in August when we adopted the ordinance, just slipped my mind. And I've talked to Councilman Stegman about this. He's been a great help in this whole process and has graciously volunteered to do this. So thank you very much.
I would just like to thank former Councilman Sanders for working on this. He was the driver on getting this through, and I was on Chuck. So with the state. So thank you for the opportunity to be the liaison.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Any comments from the council members? Okay, we have a motion to adopt resolution 150-2025, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So discussion items and updates. So I've already given the Caribbean and Lambertville High School redevelopment update. Wanted to just we have 2 or 3 subjects to talk about this evening. So at the last council meeting, we talked a little bit about Region 9. We opened up that discussion. And I just wanted to check in with the council to see if they had time to look at the proposal that was submitted to the city by Region 9 for an amended pilot agreement. So that was the first thing. I wanted to sort of to see where people were thinking or are thinking in respect to their requested meeting.
Well, I was kind of wondering, since it's really financial in nature, I can't, you'll have to remind me, but have our budget consultant and CFO look this over. The appropriate financial professionals, have they looked this over to see if it makes sense fiscally to do this for the city?
Well, we ran it by certainly Christie, the CFO, and the city's financial advisors. So I did have an email exchange and a brief conversation with her name is slipping my mind at the moment.
Sherry.
Sherry Tracy.
Yeah.
What's the company?
Phoenix Advisors. Well, it used to be Phoenix Advisors. They just changed their name to Municipal something Advisors.
So when we talked to the city's financial advisor, she said that this is really a policy decision. As I noted last time, she did say that typically, and this was confirmed by the local Hustines agreements and other municipalities negotiated at 6.28 really is the minimum for a pilot agreement of this nature. And so, what I suggested last time is if the council is willing to consider the Region 9 proposal that we don't decrease it all the way to 6% after 2037, but we stick with that ban on 26.28.
Just a point of, not that, it's kind of a neutral point, but informational point is that the program that allows them to make the improvements that they're doing through New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, called HMFA, requires this as part of the, it's part of the overall package. So it's not that it's a unusual practice. It's kind of part of the how you go about that. So that this is what allows them to be able to renovate and provide affordable units through a combination of pilot, but of course also the tax credit financing of the programs that they work through. I think that's the part that we all miss in just looking at raw data is, a synthesis of, the program. I didn't look it up on my own, but from just my walking around knowledge of working in affordable housing, I know it's like just part of it, pro forma. I think the part that, for me at least, the part that is a little bit, not different, but is kind of an aside, is the discussion, and I know Evan raised it about the construction fees, which I don't believe is, you know,
That's next.
part of that, no, it's part of that, but, you know, I look at it as a package, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm okay on a pilot, because it allows them to do what they're doing, and it's something I think that it's a great facelift, and it's a great approach for those units, and, you know, it's a good program, you know, we did it up at Heritage Village when she's applying, they were applying to do that, and we went through the same thing. But, you know, the construction fees is a whole different request, so to me, I mean, I think that's something to discuss, I mean, we don't have, and question, we don't do that, we haven't done that. And I don't know what the justification or the request was that, or how it fit into the budget, so.
So is the question of construction fees something that could be deferred until we have more information about what that cost factor would
Of
be?
course, we don't have to decide that at all tonight.
Right.
At any time in the near future, but we do have to assign a pilot at the September 18th meeting, so whatever decision, if we're ready to make a decision about this tonight, you could give me direction, and I could direct Bill Opal to drop the appropriate pilot agreement assignment.
Yeah, you know, it would be really great, I think, just for the public too, is that, like, I don't have a problem with the pilot. Well, like, we should walk through, because we have been kind of doing this, and I've just been winging it, you know, the program that Bill could, you know, provide, you know, what the program is that they're applying for and how they're funding it and why this is a part of it. It's really great to hear it from somebody cogently rather than me winging it, you know, it would be great, you know, but it is, you know, part of a, you know, I don't wanna say, trust me, I wanna hear from him, you know, but he can describe, you know, the program, but it is kind of, you know, affordable housing is not like an easy thing to apply, so there's always packages of tax credits and this and that, and pilots and stuff to make it possible, when, especially when you're built, do it 100%, you know, and they're gonna be improving units,
Mhm.
you know, which, you know, again, my Bernie's been there a long time, a facelift. Kids do, right? Yeah,
So
Right.
it sounds like we should, not discuss the construction fees potentially tonight and save that for another conversation. Or look, or today. You know, save it for another day, basically.
Right.
Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, let's take it one step at a time and kind of see where the dust settles. And see what the next step means in the context of the project and the financials.
Quick question on the construction fees. Have we, in past agreements, uh, um, lowered construction fees for any project out?
Not that I've heard from any Crystal about this, no, I don't think there's a precedent.
No, and you know, a lot of our pilots are old. The most recent one that we did, other than recently we did Heritage Village, was a Conotap for Hibernia Apartments, and that was just maybe 5 years ago. But everything else goes back to the 70s, so I'm
Oh,
not,
I was talking about construction fees, you know, not so much the pilot, but construction fees themselves, if we've lowered or waived or anything. I
only for flood victims, that was it.
I don't recall doing,
Yeah, only for Pleasanton, certainly during my tenure, and I think
Yeah.
Crystal said that we've never. done
yeah, and I don't recall that happening as well. I just wanted to,
Yeah, I think
if there was a precedent, I would want to know what the precedent was, right?
I think it's important too that the public knows that this is a pretty limited situation, to consider a pilot, because we're dealing with a 100% affordable housing. We don't have some market rate developer coming in here, you know, wanting to build and make money off. This is essentially nonprofit, so I generally am not in favor of pilots, but I think in this very limited circumstance, I do think it's appropriate. Obviously, understanding from Councilwoman Kaminsky's, you know, knowledge with this is how they need to operate and everything. I looked into that. She's right. It makes sense. So I don't have a problem with the proposal for the pilot for Region 9.
Okay.
I'm good.
So we have the 6% be raised to 6.28% minimum, which is the standard.
2030.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Bill to drop the appropriate resolution, so just to confirm, we will keep the pilot, we will keep the pilot 7.5% from in 2026, will 2027 will drop to 7% until 2032, when it will drop to 6.5%, until 2037, when it will drop to 6.28% for the duration of the pilot, which ends in 2050. Okay. Great. Thank you. So the next topic, and we've not had a chance really to talk about, we talked a little bit about it in several meetings, it's come up, and I'm gonna have to really rely on, I think in particular, Councilwoman Kaminsky here, when we talk about, you know, there's been a lot of interest in looking at the master plan and zoning ordinances. And basically, what I would like to do is have Councilwoman sort of weigh in with, you know, kind of her experience with this, and, you know, I don't know what we've, I mean, I know that we've done some work in the past, but it's been many years since we've looked at our zoning ordinances, but I agree that it's time, and, I feel, you know, if we're, like, talk with this, a little bit about this and see whether there, I've got an idea about at least two council people I would love to have lead this, effort. And so, you know, I really want to begin by taking your review, Councilwoman. I think we're going to talk about this that much. Yeah. This conversation.
So. Well, I was a planner by trade, but I kind of, do it anymore. But one thing, so the master plan, of course, is the basis of like all our zoning. So, technically, you know, you do a master plan, re-examination report, which then provides the basis for, you know, making any changes to your zoning. So a lot of it is, you know, how to approach it. I mean, I've tons of, but a lot of times, unfortunately, you know, we do need a consultant to help us, you know, kind of map it out in terms of what we're thinking. And I always think it's kind of best to kind of take a group think amongst the city, you know, take a look amongst the city, you know, first elected folk, you know, people in, you know, and, you know, city officials and personnel, you know, just to, you know, kicking around some ideas of where we think we want to go, because I think the important part is there's certainly a public element to it, but I kind of like putting together some ideas to kind of test out there, you know, rather than just have a free for all, which is sometimes, you know, kind of, you know, for me and my experiences, it's hard to manage, you know, but we kind of, you know, come up with some areas of town that we want to look at, you know, there's certainly, you know, like kind of off the top of my head, you know, we're looking at, you know, the northern area of town, because there's certainly redevelopment, you know, there. There's a lot of thoughts about, I mean, I don't want to get real specific, but like at the CVF, you know, how you can reorient that, you know, if you go to some towns around, you know, like places like that now have like an anchor in the corner, like you put a Walgreens in the corner there and it heads out, and then there can be stores around it, behind it, or housing behind, you know, there's a lot of thought around, you know, some around that aspect of it. You know, there's obviously, you know, a look too at the downtown, and you know, just because, you know, I like to try to look at, you know, places where people could amass parcels or not, you know, taking a look at this, you know, just the way I know we recently had changed like our parking ordinance a couple of years ago. Is that still smart, you know? So, I mean, just off the top of my head, but I think a lot of it revolves around too, is having a consultant and having some fresh eyes and having some other ideas come in from planning people in the field, right? who are doing this elsewhere, you know, in other towns. So that's kind of helpful too. So, I don't know, you know, in terms of, you know, budgeting, you know, where we think we want to go. Also, you know, kind of creating maybe if we want to, do something short of, a total reexamination of what ordinances, you know, that we like to change, you know, or not, you know, so. But I think we need to like certainly kick it around with somebody with some fresh eyes in terms of, you know, some ideas and, you know, that's
Just
kind of,
like an RFP for a
Yeah.
planner
yeah.
and
Like,
and then do it, you know.
or, yeah, like, and you know what's really great is that too, is sometimes if you put it out, like, you get ideas back from them on as to how you should do it, you know? Because, hey, look, we don't like, hold, you know, the cornerstone on how to do this. But like, when you put out an RFP, something like that, you get some ideas back, you know, and there are people who can do that, and there are, you know, there are people that, you know, may respond, because it could be something, you know, a little bit meatier, you know?
I think the idea of a consultant is great. I know Council President Lambert has talked about, like, with our professionals, sometimes when they play too many roles, you know, we don't get as much new information or a fresh set of eyes. You know, we have the city attorney and the redevelopment attorney as the same person. Well, maybe sometimes it's good to have two separate people. And so this sort of falls in that, where I think if we get a consultant who has, you know, experience outside the city, you know, they might be able to look at, you know, their experiences, and we could really benefit from that. So I like the idea of a consultant and, you know, an RFP. I think that's a really great one. I'm happy to help out however I can as well, so.
Yeah,
Because the master plan, absolutely, you know, I think everyone in town after the Coriel project, you know, realized that that's something we have to look at, because everyone was upset about that, but we haven't done the steps that we need to prevent that type of development from happening, and that starts with the master.
right, and you know, and that's an important part too, because we really need to step up. And through this, we probably would, kind of talking again to the Canal Commission, because the Canal Commission is, when I talked to him a couple months ago, John Hutchinson's the executive director, former member of Billion. And John, they were in the midst of updating the master plan as well, which is really important to us, because he had described to me, and probably shoot me for saying this, but that the plan can be tend to be a little dated, which is why they were in the process of trying to be able to appeal to the administration to go out, procure a professional to take a look at it, because it's very dated, and it encourages some things that they may not encourage today. It looks at some areas of you know, crushed compacted areas as impervious surfaces that maybe we don't want to look at, but anyway, there could be an interface with that too, because you know that they're right next to us, that kind of superfluous, but it's an important fact, because we always talk about like Canal Commissioner, PPL can do this, but they're very separate agencies that come at different times, and you know, sometimes our missions are now in 2025, you know, kind of elevating up, but.
You know, not specifically for the Canal Commission, but construction, science, pervious, impervious surfaces are something that are being brought forward in a time where there has been certain movement in creating pervious surfaces instead of impervious surfaces. So I think if we get some kind of support, if the Canal Commission or any commission, or whether it is updating their rules and definitions, it might strike a nice balance for us and every other city or along the or township along the canal that would make it easier to have preserve what they want to preserve while we can, and what, and a municipality can move forward with certain things based on current science and development in the industry. The other thing I thought about is, as far as the zoning ordinances go, I think it would be really helpful to go back, and maybe this could be part of the RFP. Go back through X amount of time, pick a time frame, and see what people came in front of the zoning board for relief of an ordinance. So that information we already have. So if you pick a time frame, you want to go back and examine, how many ordinances that we gave relief to, or the boards did, we would get a better idea about how to change or amend our ordinance to address the concerns of people that come in front of them. I'm not saying make everything okay, but we would be able to get a flavor. And there were a few examples of things that happened in the last 5 years that came in front of the board for cure, and they were given permission to do certain things where, because of perhaps pre-existing non-conforming use items came before us, or an applicant found a way to get something, and our ordinances were not strong enough to prevent it.
Yeah, and an additional layer on that too, just to be remiss if I didn't mention it, is that, whether or not the DEP regulations about flood and some of the things they're considering adopting and or not adopting, which, we really have a couple of months to see how this is gonna sort out. We have a new administration in January, but, that also, kind of changes things too, because, it is kind of like we have some issues here, and I've talked to a lot of other people in other towns about this, about, how the mode is to go up, but then when you're wind up to be in towns like this that we don't have the expanse of land where it's easier, we can do something higher over here, and then it can step down where we're really kind of on top of each other. We're really gonna have to look at and have some help. Cause it's a huge, and it blows your mind when you start to think about all of it, that,
Well, like the height of building.
the newer height, and then what can you do to kind of not have them all be boxes? Because, design usually starts out when change happens, just in my, experience, you get what you get, so that's why these rectangular boxes on this mid-century modern thing going on, but it's gonna change, but we need to kind of step down the starkness of it, and then how do we do that, too? So there's a lot of questions, that's why we need some help.
Right. And so much has evolved, with the change in design, the economy going the direction it's going in, I think the overtaking of private residences and, corporations buying into smaller communities. I think it's important that we update our master plan and our ordinances to reflect that what we want to do is not prevent development, but contain it in such a manner that it adds value to the characteristics and the visual, the architecture, that it blends in with the community as we've all come to love it, right? And that we don't have too many big boxes, that we don't have these big box square, rectangular, going on. So I agree. I think fresh set of eyes is really important. It gives somebody, hopefully you get somebody who has a really fresh perspective and appreciates what we're trying to accomplish, which is not to stifle development, but to have it be done in a way which contributes to the character of our community.
And I would just add on top of that, our historic preservation ordinance that we've just adopted, right? So, there's a lot of evolving things here. There's a lot more attention to some of the traditional values and historical architecture. So, these are all things that I think, need closer examination. I fully support it. I'm just not sure what the next steps are. So do you guys want to have a conversation? I mean, do we want to?
Yeah, I think we're, again, like, I don't think it's not something that we, like, you're gonna do next week. I think we need a little lead time too on seeing what DEP is gonna do on the regs, but
Right.
kind of maybe come up with a proposal on structure or something to then get to the RFP and then, see what we could do. And we can also kind of go through some folks who might be interested and, contact them and see, what we're talking about and what they suggest,
I can, see what RFPs might be available on the league's website.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
times, I mean, it's not like you're stealing from them, but it's a good starting point.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad we got this conversation started, and I'll be pleased to hear it continue, and evolve into something substantive.
So just for, just Karen and Evan, when you start to reach out, if you could incorporate, some input that was given to you from me and Ben, first name basis, it's a work session, and the mayor, you get a title. You're easy to remember. About looking to see what variances were issued, what were denied, what was asked for. And that's kind of like, the information is there, but let's use what we can from it to make a decision going forward.
And I would just, lastly say before we move on, we have so many great resources in the city already. We've got the Vermont Historic Preservation Commission, former planners and former people who are part of this stuff here. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just
So-
think it's really great to give them something to bounce off.
Yeah.
Against,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to invent the wheel, out,
Yeah.
right?
All right, good, thank you. Moving on. So, and this is another thing I feel like it's time to start doing some things that we've been doing, or new things, I should say. I wanted to begin a conversation about looking at the buildings up in particular, the historic house and the barns. I don't have any particular ideas about this at the moment. I did, after the agenda was posted, we did get a letter from Marianne Borsch with her suggestions. But I would say that this is really the first time where I'm throwing this out there. But I would like us to, as a group, come to some consensus about how we want to approach these buildings. It's just a question of getting a number of people from different, stakeholders involved and sort of having some discussions. Look at the buildings. I want to sort of understand what we can use in particular, for example, the Holcomb House for, right? So we've never really looked at the capacity. We've never really looked at some of the challenges of the house or how it can be used. So we do get questions from time to time about using it, and we're reluctant so far, for the most part, in handing the keys over for any one thing, because once you do that, you set a precedent, and we want to look at this in terms of overall value and availability and what it's best suited for. So, we want to throw that out there for a couple of minutes, for the council. My own thought is, maybe we put together a group of people, a couple of people from Historic Preservation, Historical Society, council, 2 or 3 or 5, residents, maybe Parks and Rec, get some stakeholders together and start throwing out ideas, maybe 1 or 2 people from the library board. So I'm open to suggestions from anybody, and we don't necessarily have to get anything squared away tonight, but I just want to get us thinking about it, talking about it a little bit. And it's been 4.5 years now that you bought the property.
Yeah, I think historic preservation is especially, for the members and the chairman have, a great deal of information. And I know we're looking to get the building registered at this point for historic preservation. Which
Still in
is,
process.
yes, in the process. But I think we have to realize with that building is that the inside of that building is not historic anymore. other than that one fireplace. The rest have, it's the facade now that I think we should, two things. Whatever we do is to protect the facade of that building. What we do inside of it, as far as any renovations or having handicap bathrooms or things that would be needed to use it as a public space
Yeah.
is,
No, we were just.
oh,
Yeah, no,
Sidebar.
this is the big
Well,
problem.
but
You
that,
identified
if
the
you
big
use
problem,
something as a public facility,
yeah,
then you would get into ADA issues and parking issues and,
Right.
you know.
And then we're-
toilets and,
yeah.
Can't just like,
well, that,
you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Quite-
and there's
quite-
a park, you know,
quite-
so
quite-
we really have to like.
yeah, well, quite frankly, that was the reason why in the conversation about opening it up to outside groups, that it opened up a full question and between a full discussion through everybody about it's not ready for prime time. The interior of that building is not.
You know, probably before we get, you bring up a great point, because before we got to like fun stuff, we really need I don't know what, like who does it, could tell us, oh, if we were gonna use this as a public facility and rental, what the regs are of what we would have to do here, because you know, then we can get to the fun part, right? But if we don't know the parameters, we can be kicking around ideas all we want, but then, like, I'm kind of curious as to, you know, we're making a mountain out of a molehill or not. So
Yeah.
if we had somebody write us down something.
Yes.
I always like when people write it down.
Paul Harding
Yeah,
would be happy to do that, right? I did talk to the construction code official.
Yeah,
and
right.
they can-
Yeah.
and,
Like, let's
the
start
fire
with
official,
that.
yeah.
and
I
then
will-
we go to
I
the
will,
fun,
I will
you
start
know,
with that.
game, because like, yeah, it's just the parking and the access to it is not that great. So, and it's, and then if we're worried about people tripping on the sidewalks. I don't know about you, for getting in the building is, you know, if you're gonna have a lot of people do it, no, it's just, which I hate that, you know, like, we all don't like that, being that like kind of nitpicky, but even, you know, like, look, you gotta think about things, look at you, public safety and all those things, it does matter, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so let's put the car, that's the car.
Parking and the access to me are the first things you have to look at, because we do whatever we want to the inside, but if people can't park there and access, they're not gonna use
Yeah.
it, so.
Right.
Especially with the subdivision, you know, where we wanna look at the road and all that
Well,
stuff.
what are we doing with Fisherman's Mark? Is there something we have to share? Like, you know, it's not like, oh, coming up with a list to say why you can't do it, but you come up with a list and figure out what you would have to do all those things,
Right.
you know, which all goes back to, you know, the
And-
folly of this, like, oh, that would this be fun? We can put on a show here, and it's like a little more complicated when you're a public entity than when you're.
Well, I think we can get guidelines from the state.
Well, we'll get it from Paul.
And our Historic Preservation Commission and also the Historical Society. And figure out what part of the building is preserved and what part is not preserved. Because generally, when the Lambertville house was pretty close to getting a major exterior renovation the first time before it opened up, is, I believe, the city designated the facade of the building as historic. And certain, and Sydney, correct me, didn't the city do something? And it was a
Yes.
while ago,
It was a
so,
long time ago, it was back in the 90s.
Yeah. so,
But the city did have to get involved because it was a gentleman who owned it who was not able to finish the job. And if you remember correctly, the facade was pulling away from the building.
Yeah.
And that's when the city got involved. And I don't remember our exact steps and what we did, but we did have to take some steps to preserve the building.
yeah.
So I will get Paul Hardifer up there and Frank Kerr to look at the building. I'll report back, and report back to October 14th, but I can certainly send out an email at the second October meeting.
I think it's a great way to approach it because there probably are uses that would work. But public building is public access and it's ramps, it's on the outs, it's a lot of things happening. So let's find out what we can do and what we can't do.
We also have the affordable housing that's going up there too, so that's why I think the access, the driving or the parking, to me, that's the number one thing we've got to map out. But we've got to do that with Fisherman's Mark to figure out how they're gonna access, how we're gonna get that back part.
Right.
You know, people that just want to go and hang out and have a picnic there, they should be able to drive and park there and.
Yeah.
Well, I believe, you want to go?
No, go. Oh, okay, I'll go.
There was discussion early on, about if parking on the preserved property, not the exclusion zones. But but parking is allowed on preserved property to service the people's access to the property. So we have to keep that in mind.
I thought we got an answer that we could do that.
Good.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
we are.
so that should factor in the use of the, you know, a place for people to park and use.
Well, and I don't get too far afield here, but I also, and I think I've mentioned this in past meetings, but I've had initial conversations with the city engineer about the site where the greenhouse is, and that's level. And it's a certain width, we can get parking spaces there, maybe 8 or 10. So, you know, there is, and that's in the exception area, that's not even the park.
Right.
So anyway, so let me come back with some more information and
Right.
we'll continue to talk about it. You know, give some thought to who you think should be a part of this conversation, get stakeholders in. Once we have sort of understand what the limitations or the advantages of offering the building as a public building are and how that should go. Okay.
Right.
Right. Moving on to the business administrator. So I did, so earlier in the year, I had a number of conversations with Frenchtown. They were interested in doing a shared service agreement for a business administrator. I recently just asked them about it again, and they are off the idea. So they have kind of pulled out of the idea of doing shared services for a business administrator. We have in fact budgeted money for a shared service agreement this year. That money is outside of the cap because it's a shared service agreement, or it was intended as a shared service agreement. So now, you know, that's not happening. I think it's time for us to have a conversation again about the business administrator. Cindy to weigh in a little bit here. I'm speaking for myself. I think that it's a good idea. I don't necessarily believe that we need a full-time business administrator. But I do think that there are a number of things in City Hall that could really use some help. I'm just gonna throw these two things out here and then we can talk about the existing administrative code. But I will also say that, you know, ideally, I would like to be able to introduce, amendments to the ordinance for the business administrator in the next month or so that we could get that out with the, in December with the RFP for professionals. Doesn't happen, but so, you know, I think the two areas of help that we need in the City Hall that would be most helpful, obviously, human resources. We talk about this a lot. We have, Sue Bacorn does a great job handling human resources from the treasury position, but the rest of it is, it's catch as catch can, quite honestly. So, and then the second focus, I think, for me would be to have someone in City Hall that would, Cindy's current position really is a mix of administrator and clerk. And she's doing a lot of administrative work. So the focus that I would like to see would be to have somebody that could oversee all grant projects and all capital improvement projects. Those are the ones that are the most labor intensive for me. I mean, I continue to get emails about Cavallo Park from concerned residents and overseeing these projects it's very time consuming and it's very specific and it's very easy for, Cindy and I work in tandem well, but we're also working with professionals and the budget office. And I think to have one person just really entering everything into the system and overseeing the process and following up would be really a huge benefit for the city.
I think everyone's is still in a position where they remember things about the last business administrator and the scope and power of that position. What we've kind of spoken about in the past individually is it sounds like a project manager would be a title that I think that everybody could perhaps accept more readily than a business administrator. And this person would be assigned projects as needed. They would know where they should, what we intend to give them the scope for their job. And it could touch on everything you said and not have the title of business administrator and have the power that goes on with that role. So like project manager, the person is in charge of Val Park, the person is in charge of, could be HR, person is in charge with managing grants and that kind of thing, so.
But I think that just going through what records offers and looking at their certification process for a BA, all of those things are encompassed in that title. So I understand your concerns, and I think that Councilwoman Kaminsky in the past has spoken about concerns for the way the current ordinance is written. And I think Mayor Nowick has just noted that he understands that some of that language has to be changed, but felt that project management, human resources, and it's probably other things would all in the end be most beneficial. And I have to tell you, it's because right now I'm not climbing down to some of the things that the mayor will do, but I handle the paperwork. But would it be nice for me to know, the contractor had issues on this thing so that I could put that in writing? Yeah. And does that come to me eventually? It does. But to have one person manage that whole piece of it and be able to then file that grant paperwork that goes with that project management, and we get a lot of grants. So it's really, they kind of go hand in hand together. And the human resources piece has always been something that has been an issue. And because you don't have somebody overseeing, and the handbook is the handbook, but nobody uses the handbook. Do you know what I mean? So to have that one person that knows the handbook, that knows the law, that knows about family leave and all of that, because I stopped going to the classes about family leave when we hired the BA because it was no longer my position. So I didn't keep up with it. So it's good to have somebody in that.
Well, I'm not saying we should bring on someone that doesn't have the qualifications. I mean, to be the head of HR, there's a whole nother, like, just like when you became clerk,
Yeah.
There's a whole level of approvals in there.
Give him this one, get on what it wants tonight, I think that part of our issue is like, it sounds like it is, and I'm just analyzing it. So Dr. Karen, but is that we really need, like, before we get to, we're gonna run out and hire this guy. What I'm really interested in is, like, what is our structure gonna be? Like, like, let's get the whole thing down before we run, because like the shiny object has always been, oh, let's get a business administrator. Well, I'm not really sure what it's gonna do, because we've never really looked at, like, as a little, like, okay, this is our decision tree, like, like somebody's doing this over there, I don't know, but because nobody, I'm not sure who reports to who. Not that, not to be a stickler, but when you're in government, you gotta have an organization, you gotta have an org chart. And you gotta figure it out, like, so, somebody's holding the buck at the end of the day on this, somebody can move ahead on that. So like, we have to talk about a structure, because that whole ordinance, it's not like one or two things. The whole ordinance doesn't work, when you look at it, like the business administrator is like bizarre in the ordinance. You guys are like, don't do anything. And it doesn't really make sense. So like, what's gonna be our structure? How are we gonna do that? Are we paying this person salary and benefits? Like, that's what I don't understand if he's part-time, and then like understanding what the budgetary effect is gonna be, because as we know, like they just introduced, the benefit part is going sky high and it's not done yet. Cause the final number is gonna come out the end of the month and it's gonna be higher than the number that they came out with here. So what are we doing, because is it gonna be somebody who wants that or not, or, and then, like kind of defining the need of, we have 20 grants, like, I always feel like, you get a little bit of info, but I like to say, what's our whole structure gonna be? How many people we have, and what's our HR, what is the HR need? Because, are we talking about being like advised about certain training for certain things? Are we, but like, and then how do we get that? And how do we know that, does that, like HR, it's family leave, filling out all this paperwork. But we aren't together as to what we offer in that, like we said, our handbook's not updated, and we're in a jam too. So like, we have to know what we want rather than thinking this person is gonna come in and solve our ills and have the answer. It's like, let's define it for them and then worry about, and how are we paying for this? That's all, like, I really, like, again, it's like kind of the end, it's like budget time is in April, but like now it's kind of like, okay, this is like our overall, additional costs, and this is, what it would take to pay for it, which is really kind of instructive as to your decision making as well. But particularly, you guys know you want, I have no idea what you want. I just come
No,
in and
and
something's here and you're doing that, but it would be really instructive. Yeah.
Weaknesses, I think, is what the
Yeah.
map is identified, and what I would love to do is to take this ordinance. I've heard you,
Mhm.
and I would like to bring in some other elements to it and put it back before you, before it's ever even introduced. To give us some feedback. What do you think of this language? Is this too bad? So we can think about the organizational structure.
Well, who reports to who? Yeah, exactly, kind of
Right.
reports to who, and then you
Right.
have the, like, and then what does that do
Mhm.
with the construction office?
Right.
Like, where is all that?
Yeah, yeah, because I think the first time it was written, we didn't give consideration to things like the construction official really reports to the state of New Jersey. Things like that, and all of that has to go into this mix.
Yeah.
It should be something that you're comfortable with, that the staff is comfortable with working with that person, whoever it ends up being. But I think this is like very beginning. This is what we have. We know it's not working. These are the revisions, and then get feedback from you, and then we go from there.
Well, you could probably pull, well, first
Absolutely.
from your personal. And both of you fact, women have plenty of experience of where things go off the rails. So I would welcome that, really, but let's if you can do that with something in writing,
I think my concern really is, Karen indicated earlier, we've got to figure out the payment and, part-time versus full-time, because obviously the business administrator, I would assume, is not gonna be the lowest paid employee of the city, is gonna come in towards the top, and that is gonna change the budget and all of that. I think there's some benefits to it. Obviously, there's consistency among administration, which is good for the city without a doubt. I'd like to see what that position, we talked about the grants, it's not something I thought about, it's something, obviously, we should think about that. But I think really the big concern I have is our town big enough for a full-time administrator? And that's what's really a shame about Frenchtown, because I would see that have a lot of benefit because we could split it. And, really the benefits, when you look at the budget and what we're spending, benefits is a really big part. So we can't just look at salary, we've got to look at that. And we've got to match that with the needs that we've identified, and we may look at it and say, yes, we have needs, but this position is just not feasible full-time, and we have to wait for someone else that we can share services with, but I think it is great for discussion, so. But I have big concerns about the pension and the pain and the benefits and all that.
That's part of their issue up there as well, you know, just in terms of, you know, how the budgetary hit was not like.
I mean, the way I envision this position, I mean, the unicorn would be someone who had already been a business administrator, retired, and wanted a part-time position, so they knew the job, you know, only wanted to do 10, 15 hours a week. That would be amazing, but that's gonna be hard to find. So my concern is just, again, the benefit part. So.
Yeah, and I think, doesn't the league have jobs listed?
Yeah, and that would be like one of the very first places we go to
Yeah, to the
download.
league to go see who's looking for work,
Yeah.
who's available.
Well, and also to see what job descriptions they have out there.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
you need to have a job description.
Mhm.
So ideally, what you should do is try to determine number of hours per week. For each like for each bullet, right? Job descriptions like bullet points. So you determine that, and that should tell us how much we really need, because like we're talking here and I'm Googling, you know, municipal business administrator job description, and quite honestly, if we went by this, I don't know what the mayor would do. So, you know, I think we've got to balance that. You know, we're not that big. We have to keep that in mind. It's not just the financials, but you know, we had this, he was full-time, right? Yeah. No, he was, I can't remember.
Yes, he was.
He was full-time.
He wasn't here full-time, yeah. But, you know,
Was he the HR person and he sued us?
yeah,
Right.
right, yeah.
I'm an insurance.
Let's not go far back in the wayback machine.
But, you know, I think we have to be, one of the, I view one of the big missteps with the original endeavor was the lack of oversight of that role. And we have to be certain that there is a checks and that there are checks and balances on that role, because this person just went out and bought crap and said, hey, kids, I just bought you some new software, my personal pet peeve, but, you know. Well, this is a little clients, I'm like, I'm implement this, right? Anyway,
Exercise, and at the very end, you may say, we don't need a BA, but we do need a project manager, which is very.
exactly, and
Or we don't need either, but we do need, you know, but it's an exercise. I gotta go.
I completely agree, and I also think I wouldn't rule out the possibility of advertising for a part-time person. I think given the economy that we're in and what COVID did to people wanting, you know, preferring to work remotely, people not really wanting to have 40-hour weeks, you might find somebody, you might find a working, you know, you might find a mom with has children who wants that, you know, a couple of days a week, right? And that could be to our benefit, but you know, again, we have to think about the cost of the ancillary costs of benefits, you know.
Yeah,
of that.
and what we want them to do.
And what we, but yeah, we have to have that clearly spelled out, and we have to have oversight on what that person is able to do.
All right, so Cindy, why don't you get cracking on that? Just for the record, I don't want, I wouldn't advocate for a full-time business administrator. I don't think we need one. And I think,
No, I don't think so.
I think 24 hours a week would be more than enough. I do think it's, I think we could easily fill, but anyway, I just want to state for the record that I'm not advocating a full-time business administrator.
19 and a half hours of part-time cutoff for pension, or is that,
No, it's 30 hours. For benefits,
you have to work 30 hours.
yes,
So, right, if we got
but
a
part-time,
then
right.
we might not be obligated
Right.
to have to
Well,
pay those
and-
additional.
And there's been a strategy.
so they're still entitled to sick time, vacation time, and personal time, but it's all dependent on the number of hours they work based on what your full-time hours.
That's, I think, more of it. It's really the health insurance and, you know, that's what
Well, it's a model that's worked well for us with a part-time budget consultant, part-time CFO, and a part-time tax collector, and a
Why
part-time
not,
tax
why
assistant.
not a part-time BA,
Right,
right? I mean, we don't have to share with somebody, we just say X number of hours a week.
right.
And we make sure we're under the threshold.
All right, so, Cindy will get,
Quick,
yes.
little on topic, but off topic, is, don't we have someone who has in the past or presently writes grants for us?
No, we have not had that position in several years. We used to hire a company to do that. But I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of it was, they would go out and they would find a grant. And then I'd be doing a lot of the writing back for them to include into it. There was probably one time where I didn't write the entire grant.
Oh.
So we're paying them and they were really just going out and looking for grants
Well,
for us.
well, we pay them if we get the grant, they get their fee from.
No, we paid them a monthly
Or they
stipend.
get, the fee is compensated when we go out to get a bond.
Yeah, but we paid them a monthly
Okay, so I'm just curious.
to just
I
look
remember.
for things,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
And to what, just before you go on, the second part is, we don't expect this to be tomorrow.
I hope not. It's gonna take me time
Unless
to
you have
process.
one under a piece of paper.
yeah,
No.
again, listen, I think Cindy and I have got things pretty well in hand for the most part. I'm not itching, my pacing is perfectly fine, I'm perfectly happy with the work and everything, so this does not have to happen immediately. I'm not pushing for it. I want to. I think it's important for us to really do at some point for continuity, for
Oh, yeah.
just support all that stuff. And all right, so so the last, I think, topic of conversation is ordinance discussion items. I'm just gonna kick this over to Cindy. We've had a little bit of a conversation. You know, one of the things that we do, it's very good at this because she does it very proactively, is it seems like every year or even every 6 months, we have discussions, she creates discussions or initiates discussions about fees and what's appropriate and how we raised in the last 18 years or 5 years or 4 years, and you know, what kind of potential raises and fee structures do we find reasonable and worth considering. So Cindy, I'm gonna just kind of kick this over to you. I mean, you've got a list here of the and it's in the meeting agenda for those of you who want to sort of follow along. You know, talk about landlord registration, suggested fee increases there, wedding ceremony fees. I'm gonna talk about this one right now because I married tons and tons and tons of people. I married like 5 couples last week, and we have people coming in from all over the place, and it's a lot of work for me, for Lindsay, for Cindy, and they went on their first date here, and we're delighted that they want to get married here, but we think they should pay us a little bit more than the residents. So, you know, there's a lot of thinking behind this, behind these proposed increases. And I'm gonna kick it over to you, Cindy, to answer any questions or feel.
So landlord registration, we really weren't looking at a fee increase. Instead, we were looking at the language in it because a lot of throughout it cites uniform fire safety references and enforcing officer. So what we found last year actually was the enforcing officer when we actually had to take people to court because they didn't register. We need to clear up that language to make it a little bit more stronger so that person has the ability to issue tickets to people. So that's what we're looking at doing.
Is it all on your court now?
It's not clear.
It's not clear. It's not clear enough. I cannot write a ticket, but the construction official could. And I mean, it's still a little wonky,
Well,
so we need to clear it.
if it's not working and there's no enforcement to get things done, then we have to do it.
Right.
Right.
So there's meat and
Yeah.
potato.
That's right. So we've got to just clean that one up. Then we have, so we have a different section in the ordinance that deals with meter fees. That is converse to chapter 3. So chapter 7 and chapter 8 deal with meter fees, but chapter 3 is like if they went to the police department to purchase, you know, no parking for a day, that fee doesn't come in line with this. So we want to introduce language so that we don't have to always remember to update both places, but one place references the other, so that you update here. So that's, we're looking at updating that language. For registrar fees, right now, we have two different tiers. Death records, it's $25 for the first copy and $2 for every copy thereafter. So we haven't updated them from 2011. The safety paper has gone up. Our classes, we used to get for free, now we're paying for them. So I think it's time to take a look at this, and it's really not a huge increase.
Is, on that one, are there guidelines from the state about how much you could ask for some of these things?
No,
On this, because
there
aren't
isn't.
there regulations that the state has, you cannot go, so, I'm not, maybe not on this though.
Well,
No.
some of the ordinances, certainly we've seen that, but
Yeah, but not in this one.
Yeah,
And actually, what I did is I took a look at what some of the other municipalities are doing in the county. Some are less than this, but this is pretty, like, if by offering $5 for each additional copy, you're really bringing it right into the same, 25 for the first, $5 for each additional. So,
what do you define as a registrar fee?
wedding, certified copies for a wedding license, for death records, for birth records.
Okay,
Okay.
I hear you. Just to know, I want to be specific.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And we charge $10 right now for corrections, and that's what we would leave that the same. Wedding ceremony fees, the mayor already talked about. Right now, resident, we're suggesting keep the resident fee at 100, but non-resident fee to 150.
So it's currently, because,
It's 100 across the board.
yeah.
Parks. We talked about this a little bit last year. We put it in front of Parks and Recreation. They didn't really have a suggestion regarding the fees, but they did feel that we should for non-resident. So right now, there's a usual fee for residents at $25. We're proposing that residents don't get charged a fee. And that we don't charge them a deposit of $250. We're not really finding that residents roam the parks. The last time we had an issue was when somebody from outside of Lambertville was doing some type of filming, and they ripped up all of the flowers in their Sheridan Park. So we're proposing a non-resident fee, a user fee of $50. And that's an increase from 25, and a deposit of $250. So it'd be like no change to that.
And does the current ordinance reflect that? Is there verbiage in those agreements that they are responsible for certain things
Yes,
to not do?
and in order for you have to
To get your,
facility use agreement, and you have to sign that, and in there is an indemnification for the city and for them, and then it says that they, you can't, certain parameters that they can't.
okay.
So would that mean, like you just talked about these people that picked all the flowers, so $250 might not cover the replacement of that, so are they responsible then?
Yes, they would, if there was damages, we would get a certificate of insurance and then go after their insurance in that
Okay.
particular case.
Okay.
Now tow license, I very briefly touched on this with Lieutenant Brown, because he's the one who has to, his department go through the applications. Right now, year one, it's $150, and then the renewals are $100. And what we would like to do in the clerk's office is raise the recommendation to year one would be $200, and renewals will be $150. And that's every year annually they do that, and they get on a list for tow call outs for the police department. That's for that. Any questions? Okay, leased parking spaces. Right now, for our parking lots, you're paying $55 a month and a $5 late fee.
Which spaces are you? Just
It's
here?
here and at City Hall.
Oh,
They're the two places that we lease spaces.
okay.
And we're just recommending we change that to $65 a month and a $10 late fee. And then what we would do is add a discount if somebody paid for the full year.
When was the $55 per month? How long ago was the last time? If you
I
know?
believe that was 2011, last time we changed that.
Nancy wants to go higher. Never mind it either. That feels like a deal to me to park at City Hall, but, we're gonna be asking about that.
That would be the council's pleasure. If you want to go higher, we could go higher. These are suggestions.
What about residents and non-residents?
Oh,
Do we
we
have
did
people?
have somebody back here who's not a resident.
Well, then let's tier it or not allow. Hate to say not allow it, but why wouldn't we tier it?
Well, I would think if we have space, I would have a problem with a non-resident, taking a space, but if there is a waiting list. I would think that residents should have priority over non-residents, but I think, do we have spaces available? Or is everything,
We have two available right now, it fluctuates, it's often full.
yeah,
A lot of the spaces are leased by business owners that don't qualify for residential parking permits, so that might also be something. to
Planning
consider.
board resolutions, right? Like the Lambertville House.
Well,
And that.
should the two big places, yeah, but there are other spaces out there that businesses, they rent the space. It's easier for like Callaway for them to park out here, and for Dean and Lisa Stevens, they park out here, and then they don't have to worry about a meter fee.
Yeah.
Under the Moon has, let's say, 4 spaces to allow their employees to park.
okay. Instance.
Well, that's great information to know, so we know how to proceed with pricing going on, so actually how this is being handled now, and that's so, that would be great to know. As well,
Okay, sure. So we can put that
before, yeah,
together.
before we start moving money around like.
Sure, we can do that for you. The next one is animal control. I know earlier on the year, we had some suggestions from the new animal control people on some changes to the language. I've not gotten any deep into that, so we may have those. But the licensing fee, we haven't raised that since, I want to say, and I think it was 2012 when we raised it last time. We currently pay $15, and there's an added late fee of $25. We're proposing that we go to $20 and a late fee of $30. But interesting, one of the other municipalities in Hunterdon County has a $45 late fee.
Well, we've seen that's been pretty effective with the landmark registrations, right? I mean,
It's pretty effective with this too, in most cases. The problem is, several years ago, the state did away with the need for doing a census. You used to go pay somebody to go door to door, and when that happened, our registration went down. We don't have that need anymore, we don't do it. And I know we have a lot more than, I think we have just less than 300 dogs registered, I know we have a lot. But
how many do you have, Sonia?
back up to 4.
Back up to 4.
Coffee, 2 puppies, yes.
I'll be registered until 7 months. On
Well,
compliance.
3 of them are registered, I just have 1. So anyway,
Before you
yeah,
go forward, I have a question. Do you have a question on this particular?
Yeah,
Oh,
on
go
this
ahead.
particular, on the animals, what about, charging, right now, it says charge $15, I know that you charge differently if the animal's neutered.
that's a state requirement. You have to add $3 on if the animal is not neutered.
And that's all you can add.
That's all we can.
Okay, because I was gonna say maybe increase that.
Yeah,
Okay.
That was one of my questions about are we regulated by the state on certain things?
yeah, that's the only thing that we're regulated on any of these.
Going back temporarily to leased parking spaces. Look, I don't know how many spaces Lambertville House is currently renting from us. 15. It would be good to know how many of those spaces actually get used by them on a regular basis, because I don't mind getting the money. I mind the fact that the spaces aren't used to get someone's car off the street and have a parking spot rather than have the lot underused but paid for. So that's.
That was my concern with the non-residents too, like people are paying taxes and they wanna have the opportunity to park their car in one of the lots, I think they should have priority over that, even over, business like that, like.
Right.
The person who's coming home at 7 o'clock, can't find a parking space, it's nice to have that access where they could pay for that, so that's.
Yeah, so I don't know who monitors that,
I mean, Lieutenant Brown probably has some anecdotal evidence, but you know,
Like, I could have a parking officer check it for a week time frame, see for approximately, see how many cars parked at certain times in a day, if that works for account.
you know, I don't know if that does work, and the only reason why I suggest that is I don't think it's a large enough, it's a long enough pool, right? So
Right.
the Lambertville House may have an event 3 times a month and, use those spaces. Or, the one week that you're out, so checking them, they may not be using them, so
yeah.
it's hard to get that data
I
set.
think it's in that for,
We do,
staggered from 1 week, yeah, we did do that, I thought, about a couple. But you're right, you're looking at the whole picture of summertime, like.
Right.
On Saturday or something.
and a lot of these spaces are tied to planning board resolutions, right? So,
Two of them, and they're two rather large, one's 15, what's the other, the Lambertville Station, what do they?
well, also, the Otaya, if that ever moves forward, I was at the zoning board meeting, they have to rent spaces from the city. For the apartments that were allowed, under the zoning application. So that's another 2 or 4 spaces that we're on the hook for at some point, if they move forward with that project, but.
Well, I wouldn't want to pull a meter and put a permit parking only. Up without knowing if the Lambertville house spaces are being used, because that'll reserve some more spaces that are currently meter spaces for. A project that's happening in the city, so the information would really help.
Well, Lindsay just said to me, can't we just ask them? So
Well, we can,
we can.
and then, I mean, there are potential workarounds here, right? I mean, if they're not gonna use their spaces 25 days out of 30. And we know what that's gonna be, there could be some arrangement, but it's a little complicated, I mean, Lieutenant Brown and I can talk about what that might look like. Through Park Mobile or other options potentially, you park here at the light screen, for example, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't mean to arbitrarily
No, but
repurpose them, but. We still have the graces of the current owner of bank property, and a lot of parking there, and that could change for the better, change for the worse, we just don't.
well, we'll put together a report, we'll work with Lieutenant Brown and we'll contact.
And I wouldn't hesitate to once you do what we do, is to bring Lambertville House back into this and this is what we found. I mean, do you need all these spaces?
well, they only need them because they're required. They're required.
See, I wasn't aware of the process that those were defined.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the planning board can approve that without city council, like really, well, what if we don't have a spot?
Yeah, well, it's a required, I mean, it could be an RSI, it's a requirement of what the function of the
Yeah,
building
but let's
is.
say the planning board continues to approve this and we don't have enough spots and it's physically impossible for us to comply with that. That seems to me to be a problem.
Well,
They should.
this is what. Yeah, the 2020, this was the 2021 parking ordinance that passed right before I was sworn in. And that showed I mean, because it did identify that there are a finite number of parking spaces, you can't make more parking spaces, unless you put a bigger bunch or whatever, right? And so how do you realistically, accommodate businesses changing or whatever, right? So.
Well, what typically happens is when somebody has an application before one of the boards, and it's typically Rich Mongelli, he'll call and say, do you have these spaces available? And then they start paying before they even make their application. I don't think those owners ever did.
Well,
But-
yeah, because they never performed the project, but it was a requirement of the approval at the zoning board 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but
anyway, can we mind not talking about parking anymore, it's starting to make me hot.
Well, it should.
And residential park spaces are different from commercial park.
Yeah, so we're not gonna talk about those, we're gonna go on to the shade tree commission.
I had a very brief discussion with Art this year. He's gonna take this to the Shade Tree Commission. In the past, they weren't in favor of charging fees, but when we discussed the possibility of it, having a tree trust fund that the money went into, he said that might be interesting. So he'll come back to us after their next meeting and let us know if that's something they're in favor of.
Do we look at the Airbnb fees? Do we think we need to address those? Cause I know that's taken up a lot of time.
You know, we have about 52, 53. Bless you.
No, we don't, can't be that many. It's gotta be less than 40 now, I would think.
Yeah, it's 38 or 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's manageable. I think that the fees right now,
They're pretty steep.
I think that the application fee is fine. We did not build in any late fees, so I'm doing a lot of chasing these people for free. So maybe
that
we'll
might be
put
something
that
we
in.
should look
Yeah.
at.
yeah,
Yes.
The late
Okay.
fee makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Cause the whole point is we wanna incentivize people to get their paperwork in time.
yeah, I'll add that to the.
Punish them with a smile.
Yeah.
What about non-residential trees? Sorry,
Okay.
it's late.
Sounds like we're done with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just added the Airbnb
Okay.
late fees to it.
Thanks so much. We will go back to this, but I was very productive and I think we've got some good feedback and several of these. It seems like we're just gonna be able to move forward. So,
I would just make one comment. I would actually increase the non-resident fee even more for the wedding ceremony. I make it double.
You know, it's interesting you say that. My son got married in 2008 and he paid $400 for
Yeah, I
the
mean, $200 is nothing. I think it really reflects the fact that it does take a lot of time and effort for City Hall, and I think residents who live here will give them a little bit of benefit and charge them a little bit less, so $100, but I think out of town residents should pay.
And that fee was instituted when, during that period of time that same-sex marriages were on,
Actually, it started before that. It started with, civil unions.
civil unions. Yeah,
And $200 to me isn't like, telling people that we can't get married here. It's just, this takes some time, resources, city resources, and.
I think it should be across the board, medical marriage.
You would believe how many emails I have to, I have email conversations that I'm meeting some people here next week for their wedding in August of 2026. And they're non-residents, but they want to have a face-to-face meeting to talk about their wedding. And so I like $200.
Yeah. Read out the bridezillas.
Well,
Well, I think you make a good point, people wanna have their wedding, it's a mini destination.
Yeah.
For people to have their wedding, so why shouldn't we benefit?
And maybe we'll throw in a party,
that.
the bride and groom.
Yeah,
1 free hour party.
What for
Pay your dollar.
parking?
the 75-foot wedding venue.
Announcements, please. Third quarter property taxes are due by tomorrow to avoid interest. City clerk's office is hosting an eyeglass collection through the month of September. If you pick up your glasses.
can you bring the mic a little closer?
Yeah. The New Jersey Clean Communities will host the 8th annual Delaware River Cleanup on September 20th from 8:30 to 11:30. Pre-registration is required, and as we've done certainly in the last 4 years, the DPW will be out there volunteering and helping out with collecting the refuse. So, good. And Lambertville Butterfly Festival is on for Saturday, September 13th from 10 to 12 at Ely Park. Do you agree? What? 10 to 2? Okay, that's good, because it's short. So from 10 to 2 at Ely Park. And also we have Lambertville After Dark tomorrow evening.
Oh, that's right.
From 5 to 9, I think. Right, so we will now go back to public participation. Same rules.
Quick question before you get out of announcements. I know it's a lot of work, but can you list the announcements that we're gonna talk about tonight under announcements?
Yeah, usually I do, but I missed it, and that's why we quickly got it done today, so you could read them.
Okay, all right, that would just be helpful for us and for the public. See you.
And I think most of these are in Lambertville matters.
They are, I've read through them all.
Yeah. Right, if there's anybody who wishes to make a public comment, do so now, same rules apply. Your name and address.
Sean, anyone vote here, Adam here? I'm curious about the letter that
Canadian sent about, changing our, third round. Housing element is incorrect. That's what I understand, that it says it's 138 units instead of 2. And then, you can, go ahead, John. Or, did you,
I was just
that's
gonna
the
say-
document that you.
Yeah, I got it right away, Greg, and the document, the filing is on the city website and. No, I mean, you can ask a question, but I may not be prepared to answer it. Or somebody else can, so.
Well,
What
what is our third round obligation? And what number of those is KF meeting?
I'm not gonna be able to answer that off the top of my head, sorry.
What was the question?
The letter that we got from KF lawyers said that our third round housing element is not compliant and, that we have to change the numbers from 139 units to 200 units. And so,
So that's so the original redevelopment plan that was, I think, put in place in 2018, I think that's that number there, but the court has now ordered us essentially to keep our immunity to change that number to the 200 that was proposed. So I think that's what you're asking. So that,
okay,
that's
because
because
that brings it into compliance with the third round obligation.
I don't know if like,
Why wouldn't we just be obligated to build the number that we're obligated to build?
I don't know the answer.
You know, yeah, look, I'm not an expert on it,
Yeah.
but like, part of that, I think, and I'm not right, I have to reread, you have to read it like 10 times. Is also their take on it, because then they're coming in with a whole different, challenge to, the whole idea is that they're poking holes in. And,
Okay,
but, for their end, so.
to try to get more out of
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, I'm like, right, again, I'm winging you, but it's kind of like it's like, the one thing I can say about affordable housing, particularly now since the whole redevelopment aspect is into it, is that more than ever, it's like this really crap game with the numbers, like I can tell you that what I think the number is, and then Sally next to me can tell you it's like really like maddening, and that's why they get filed at DCA, and it's not like DCA goes through them and says, like when there was a council on affordable housing, yes, you met your number, no, you met your number, this is your number, like, it's kind of like always a floating crap game, and if somebody wants to redevelop something, all done, your number changes, so that's why it's like, I know we said like idiots, but like, everybody kind of understands it differently, so
it. Yeah,
it is hard,
okay. I just wanted to try to get some
yeah, so.
clarity on that. I do want to say that I'm in full support of getting a consultant for looking at the master plan. I think that would be wonderful, because I think that our current planners don't really have a lot of fresh ideas, and so the other thing that I wanted to mention is that if we're going to be putting all this work into doing a new master plan or re-examining it and creating new a new vision, I should say, we have to follow it. I mean, the fact that it's still that, last night planning board still rejected it, and one of the tenets is talking to our neighboring municipalities. I don't think did anyone have a conversation about the project with any of our neighbors, especially West Stanwell, since it butts up and directly impacts their residents. Why are we writing this if we're not actually going to follow through on it? That's my comment. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay, have a motion to close the public comment period, please.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion to adjourn, please.
So we're
Second.
All in favor?
fine.
Thank you very much for coming.
My husband's with the bar.
Go.
Oh, yeah, so you're all set. Better stop it to Lindsay tomorrow.
Okay.
Stuff.
Okay.